We waiting now? Come on, Bayshire. You didn't know it was 3:30? Well, guys, welcome. We're so excited to be here as elected leaders of the state of Oklahoma, and we're landing the plane today. I've been using that term a lot, and just so excited to work with my two friends here, the speaker and the pro tem, and we've had a great session, and I think Oklahomans are going to be really, really thrilled with the policy and that we're able to get across the finish line. If I go back to my State of the State address, it's really simple. I've been in here with you all session and talking about these things, and really for my 7 years as governor, and it's to make Oklahoma a top 10 state and the very best state for business. And so how do we do that? We've talked about a couple things, and there was a couple of specific policy items that we wanted to try to get done, and we talked about getting a tax cut done, giving some relief to Oklahomans, staying up with the competition and what other states around us are doing so we can be the most pro-business friendly state, and getting us on a path to zero. We've come up with an agreement on that. Getting behind the meter done. We need more electricity generation done in the state of Oklahoma, so we're able to get that accomplished, and we're setting up business courts to make sure businesses have assurance and certainty, and I'm trying to pull some business away from Delaware. As you know, Texas has set up business courts, and so we're really excited to get those things done. And it's been a long-standing priority of mine also to focus on tort reform. So there's some great bills that are going to be coming across the finish line here on workers' comp and tort reform as well. So we're signaling to the world and to the country that Oklahoma is open for business. As you know, on Monday we had a great announcement in D.C., probably one of the largest announcements at Select USA, where companies from around the world are trying to choose what states to go to. And we got a very, very large ammunition manufacturer to move and set up a factory in Oklahoma. So it was a Brazilian company. They supply ammunition to the U.S. military and also sportsmen around the country. So we're really excited to land that. Thank you. That was my team there. That was good.
Yeah, those are chief of staff.
Yeah, great job. Great job, Chief. So over the last 7 years, we've cut $1 billion in taxes, and that is significant. And like we remind people that those monies, they don't go anywhere. They just simply stay in the people's pockets to be spent how you, the Oklahomans, want to spend your money. And that money spends through the economy. So I'm excited to sign the policies that will make Oklahoma the most business-friendly state in the nation. Today I signed Senate Bill 480, which will allow companies to build power generation behind the meter. Why is that important? We love our OG&Es and PSOs and GRDA and all of our generators around the state, and they're going to be continuing to build generation. But as you know, we need more electricity generation in the state of Oklahoma, and it also holds everyone accountable. And if you can take a gas pipeline, get a turbine, and generate your own electricity for your factory or your data center, then that is also going to it injects competition into the system. And I think that's very important for the world to know that you can come to Oklahoma, and if you can't get power for whatever reason, you can actually generate your own power behind the grid. So that's really, really important. We believe this is going to pave the way for even larger projects to come to the state of Oklahoma. We also are getting a great tort reform package that put together that will protect our doctors, our small businesses from frivolous lawsuits and out-of-control non-economic damages. It's going to keep more doctors in rural Oklahoma. It's going to be able to attract more healthcare professionals to our state, so we're excited about that. It's going to make it easier for our medical community to take care of Oklahomans and ensure that there's not some of these crazy, out-of-control verdicts. And finally, we're going to get business courts up and running in the state of Oklahoma. And I feel like I've been talking about business courts for a really long time. That was part of our deal last session, and then this year we kind of put the final touches on that. So we'll get that done. A huge thank you to the leadership behind us. The appropriations chairs did an amazing job working through all the committees and coming up with a great plan for Oklahomans. And the pro tem Paxton is a great leader and really enjoyed our time working together. And we've negotiated in good faith and came up with a good solution. Ronald Reagan used to talk about never getting everything he wanted, and if you could get 80% what you want, then it's a good deal. And so this it's not a governor's budget, it's not a House budget, it's not a Senate budget, but it is the best budget that we put together to make Oklahoma a top 10 state and the most business-friendly state and take care of some priorities that are really important to Oklahomans. So with that, let me turn it over to Pro Tem Paxton to some comments, and then we'll turn it over to a few other folks, and then we'll open up to questions. Pro Tem.
Thank you all for being here. In my time involved in this chamber, involved in the Senate, I've always said that one of my primary goals is to make sure that we create an environment in Oklahoma, that a business-friendly environment, that if our kids and grandkids choose to stay and live in Oklahoma when they get out of high school, college, or career tech, that the jobs are here for them if they want to stay here, that the good economic opportunities are here in Oklahoma, so they don't need to go to Dallas, they don't need to go to Kansas City to go find a good job. They're all right here in Oklahoma. This budget gets us a long ways down the road to make sure that that happens. The governor mentioned the tort reforms. That has been one of my priorities since I arrived here at the Capitol. This year we were able to deliver on that. We look forward to having those bills drafted, finished up, and put on the floor next week so we can see them, so you all can see them, so we can get those passed and we can get those tort reforms passed. That is a huge deal for the state of Oklahoma. And if you don't know what we're talking about, just go talk to businesses that deal in this environment. It is a huge win for the state. A lot of great things have happened in this budget, and I'll let the appropriations chairs kind of delve in that a little bit more, and we'll answer questions for you. But I just want to say I'm so happy to get to work with Speaker Hilbert, the governor, the teams, the staff, everybody who's been involved in this, from caucus members. You know, it has been a great process to work with. You know, a lot of working together. And I think that's one thing when we first came in here. I think we dealt with, you know, the fact that, you know, a lot of people were interested in seeing the chambers work together and get along and try to come to good solutions. We haven't always agreed on things. We've had some good discussions about better ways to make things happen. But we've had those conversations in good faith, and we've been honest with each other, and the result of that is what you're seeing here today. So very proud to stand here today and say that we've came to an agreement on this, and that we're going to move this forward, put it in front of our caucuses for a vote so they have a chance to vote on it. So with that, I would like to also, my friend Kyle Hilbert has done a great job in this as well, been a great partner to work with. Speaker Hilbert.
Well, everybody, as the folks in this room know, when you have a budget agreement, that's a culmination of the end of session is near, right? Constitutionally, we have one job in the legislature every year, and that is to pass a budget. That is the one thing we absolutely have to do. For me, this is the 7th year I've been deeply involved in the budget process, and I would say it, to me, feels like the smoothest year in terms of budget negotiations amongst the three stools of the House, the Senate, and the governor. And, you know, last fall, when Senator Paxton was elected to be the pro tem designate in the Senate, we had many conversations, the two of us as well as with the governor, about, you know, how do we do things better? You know, not anything against any of our predecessors, but, you know, we're coming in this in a new role. What can we do to make things better for the state of Oklahoma? And I think you've seen a culmination of that throughout this session. That doesn't mean we haven't had disagreements. We certainly have. But we've figured out ways to disagree without being disagreeable and really move the state forward. And it's been a real honor working with these two gentlemen to culminate with this. And just incredibly proud of the members of the House who have put in an incredible amount of work throughout the year. Chairman Trey Caldwell, Vice Chairman John Kane, they have been diligent in seeking input from all of the members of the Oklahoma House of Representatives. And I truly believe they have built a budget from the House's perspective, from the ground up, from perspective of all members. As the governor stated, that does not mean that every member got everything they wanted. I know I certainly didn't, but it does mean that we all had input as we represent our constituents to try to build a budget that makes sense for the state of Oklahoma. And this is a budget to really be proud of. We're still sitting on $3.5 billion of savings, and I love to point out, before the three of us were elected, going back to the Oklahoma's beginning as a state, the state of Oklahoma had never had $2 billion in savings, ever, since statehood. We're at $3.5 billion, to kind of put that into perspective. So that is a great place to be as we prepare for the future. We had a lot of great conservative wins. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversations about the tax cuts and the savings. Tort reform would be remiss if I did not mention Representative Chris Kennedy, who put in an incredible amount of effort representing on behalf of the House with the Senate a deal on that lawsuit reform, tort reform legislation, which I think is incredibly important for the business community moving forward. And so some of the investments that we were able to make, when you have surplus, it's important to also invest in the future of the state. And so you see in this budget $200 million being invested in OU Hospital for their pediatric heart hospital facility, which is incredibly important, getting to see the work that they do there, truly transformational work that they do there. For Oklahoma State University, $250 million going towards the vet school. What has happened over recent years where the vet school has been on probation twice, and it's not been taken care of. And it should be an absolute gem for the state of Oklahoma and for the nation, and that is not the way it's been treated, but that changes today because we're investing $250 million to go along with a $79 million investment that we have over there, which is essential for all of Oklahoma and the region. Our veterinarians are aging out, and they're ready to retire, but they can't for two reasons. Number one, they have no one to take their place to take care of their neighbors, and number two, they have no one to sell their practice to because we don't have people going into rural veterinary care. So that's incredibly important. So a lot of really great things in the budget. I'm going to call up our two appropriations chairs. I'll let them fight over who gets the last word, but I'm incredibly proud of the work of Chairman Trey Caldwell and as well as Chairman Chuck Hall. They've done a great job working together collaboratively throughout this session and doing the best they can, representing their chambers, but ultimately making decisions that are right for the state of Oklahoma. So, Chairman, I'll turn it over to you all.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I certainly wouldn't be here today without the support and confidence of our Pro Tem, and I'm truly grateful for that. Since I came into the legislature, I've been involved in the revenue and tax side or appropriations. But this is my first year of soup to nuts to run the budget process on behalf of the Senate. It's been quite an experience, quite a learning experience, quite an undertaking for me. I could not have done that, none of this at all, without the support and the help of my Vice Chair, John Haste, and certainly our subcommittee chairs, our subcommittee vice chairs, and our subcommittees that worked so hard to help build this budget from the ground up. Additionally, it has been a true pleasure from day one working with my counterpart, Representative Caldwell. We have worked well together. I've enjoyed my time, our discussions, and I think what we've come out with is a wonderful product. My predecessor, who I still remain close friends with and think quite a bit of, always used to say that behind every dollar that we appropriate, there's a person. And that's kind of been my compass, the direction that I go as I take a look at the budget for the state of Oklahoma. What we do here matters and makes a difference for our citizens, and we take the job very seriously, and I'm very pleased with the product that we've ended up with today.
I just want to echo what Senator Hall and the Speaker said. This year has been a great learning experience. Could not have done it without the faith that Speaker Hilbert put in me to take on this role, to replace the longest-serving House Budget Chair in the history of the state, and Kevin Wallace. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank my Vice Chair, John Kane, from Bartlesville, who's been integral and stood by me every step of the way, the hundreds and hundreds of hours that we've had to set through. And then also my sub-chairs, but also my staff. Could not do this without our budgetary staff that we have that is, in my opinion, one of the most professional and best staffs in the entire country. Could not have done that without John and Mariah and all the people downstairs. Want to echo what Chairman Hall said, that this year we've been much more collaborative, and it's been an absolute pleasure to get to work with him and attack this budget from a perspective of how can we look for efficiencies and seek efficiencies, ways to save money, but also how to encourage effectiveness in the deployment of governmental resources and the actual functionalities that our government chooses to do. And I think that's one thing that every single decision when we go line by line to the budget is are we being efficient, and then are we being effective in the delivery of those governmental services. So with that, I'll turn it back over, and again, want to thank everybody, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Pro Tem, and Mr. Governor. Thank you all.
Trying to look through the budget portal, and I thought perhaps we could get some more specifics. Nice to pat yourselves on the back, but could you tell the public what's in the budget agreement overall? We've got OSU Vet School, we've got the OU Hospital, looks like the $312 million prison purchase in Lawton. I know you're excited about some education things, so could you give us a little more in the weeds? Thank you very much.
Yes, and kind of piggyback this, but the portal is not currently up to date. It'll be up to date. We wanted to wait until the House and the Senate both had the opportunity, myself and my counterpart, to be able to present to our caucus before we published it. That will be up live probably by end of day. Oh, is it live now? Okay, awesome. Okay. So, I mean, big ticket items that we're looking at are like what true one-time generational type investments that come to the top of my mind are Oklahoma University's Pediatric Heart Hospital, Oklahoma State's veterinary school, the Lawton Correctional Facility, buying that from a private entity and bringing that under the control of the DOC, and trying to find improvements with that as well. Also, we have the military, the generational type investment that we put in the Oklahoma National Guard with the resource centers and deferred maintenance at $41.6 million. What else am I forgetting off the top of my head?
Other deferred maintenance issues. So,
Yep.
I mean, let me just say, I mean, we've made over the past few years some substantial investments in new facilities, new construction. We continue to bring that on with the work that we're going to do at Oklahoma State. Very excited about what's going on with the Children's Pediatric Hospital there. But additional needs related to deferred maintenance around the state and our facilities. You'll see continued additional investment there. In those areas, we're looking at some base enhancements related to some base facilities. You're going to continue to see a desire to invest in Oklahoma. You know, the governor has created a pro-growth model for this state, and I'm very excited about what he's done and the direction that he set out. And I think that this budget recognizes where we're going to be headed with growth in the state of Oklahoma. And frankly, it's going to be demanded that we see results from the investments that we're making if we're going to continue down to be a successful state that we are today.
There's been several bills over the past few years with different income tax cut plans. Can you give a little bit more detail about what your plan that you are all united behind includes? And does it consolidate the 6 brackets into one flat rate or into a reduced number of brackets? And why was that considered to be the best plan to go with?
Sure. So our top rate is 4.75. Everybody, I think, over $7,500 in income paid 4.75. So we got that down to 4.25. I wish it was 4.25, but we got that. We got that down to 4.5. So the agreement was a quarter-point cut on the top rate, and then doing away with the bottom 3 brackets. So that would move up. Nobody would pay any income tax. It would be 0 until you hit about 8,000. So taking those bottom brackets away. And so we would love to get all the brackets away. We just weren't able to get that all done. So we would love to have a true flat bracket, and nobody would pay anything until you hit around 25,000 for a married couple filing. But that's important. And then the path is something that I think is a big signal to the business community. And basically it just says after you hit a certain revenue, so revenue grows, let's strategically invest that in certain projects or certain state government, but that automatically would trigger something back to the taxpayer. So that's all still being negotiated. They don't have the final language yet, but that'll be a very reasonable method. I think other states are doing that. You're seeing South Carolina do something like that. You're seeing Mississippi, Tennessee did that maybe 15, 20 years ago. So I think that's a responsible way that as you have additional revenue, it just keeps us accountable as elected officials that we're going to give some of that back to the taxpayer, and then we're going to invest strategically at inflation plus maybe population growth or whatever that would be.
Can I ask about the mental health funding? Where are we with the 2025 supplemental, and then did they give a 2026 number?
So we still have teams working on that, and I think they put, was it 27 million? Yeah, these guys know more. The 27 million for a supplemental for 25, and then I think that's the plug number that we have for 26 right now, and they're still trying to finalize those numbers.
There was a report, I think, from Locke that just recently came out that they think that number could be around 30.6, 31 and some change. The tentative plan on the entirety of mental health budget is to stop the bleeding with the supplemental, and then reevaluate, knowing that at the beginning of session next year, we kept them relatively flat going forward with the exception of the money for the consent decree and a maintenance of effort in Title 19 funding, but keep them essentially flat, and then at which point in time at the beginning of session next year, I know the governor is committed to it, both the House and the Senate's investigative committee, the auditor and Loft have all been looking into it and trying to find out what the long-term solution, which will probably more likely be solved with a supplemental at the beginning of next session.
I may have missed this just a little bit ago, but the 0.25% tax cut, how much of an impact does that have on state revenue? And it's curious, you know, obviously a lot of people asking to fund. There's a lot of agency requests that were more. You requested flat budgets. But what's the impact looking like, and is there concern going forward about, you know, the revenue loss?
You know, and I just, to remind everybody, Oklahoma used to be at a 7% income tax rate, and we've just, as we can, we've dropped it 40 basis points, a quarter here, 30 basis points here, a half. And so every time we've done that, we've seen our economy expand, we've seen revenue continue to grow, and so we've gone from 7 and now we'll be at 4.5. So specifically, I think the tax commission would tell you that this next fiscal year would be 120 million, would be around the quarter, and then those three brackets I think are around 40 million. Is that right? Something like that? Yeah, so, around 40 million on those three brackets. But remember, the money doesn't disappear. I say this all the time. It just doesn't come through Oklahoma City, through the state capitol. It stays in people's pockets to be able to be spent how they see fit. And every time we've seen that, the economy continues to expand. And remember, we compete in a regional and then also a national market, and we have to stay up with our competition. And our competition right now, Arkansas is going to 3, Louisiana's at 3, Arkansas is at a 3 handle, Colorado has a 4.25% rate. And so this continues to keep us very competitive with the states around us.
Yeah, can you touch on how much the average Oklahoman will be receiving from this tax cut, and what the average cuts or increases to state agencies are in this budget?
Yeah, I think as far as the state agencies, most of them stayed flat. Then some of them got increases, and then the legislature strategically invested in certain things. You know, the pro tem had a great analogy of someone making $33,000 a year. With the flattening of those brackets would save around $160, I think was the number. And that's very meaningful for a working family in the state of Oklahoma. So we think that's going to be very, very significant for a lot of families. Last year we eliminated the grocery tax, which is very helpful for working families. We were one of only 12 states that did that. And this year we were able, because our economy keeps expanding. And the question we have to ask ourselves as leaders, and really Oklahomans, to hold us accountable, if we keep growing and our economy keeps expanding, we've got to keep up with our competition, and we're not just going to keep growing government, because if we do that, that'll put us in a bad situation as well.
Looking federally, I know they've talked about cuts to Medicaid, switching up state paying versus federal paying. A lot of questionable spending federally when it comes to it and cuts. Does that concern y'all at all? Are there thoughts on that going forward? Do we have a...
I mean, I'd be happy to hear their opinion too, but sure. I mean, we're obviously monitoring all that. When we talk to our federal partners, if they cut something, a reimbursement rates in Medicaid, I think they would give us plenty of time to adjust, and they would give us more flexibility. So as a representative of the governors, both Republican and Democrat governors, we've just asked for more flexibility. If you change the funding to the states, we can handle it. Just give us more flexibility on how we do that with either block grants or more flexible spending, and then allow us to go back and get waivers and treat, and we know how to take care of Oklahomans, and it might be different in Texas or California or other states, but we haven't seen any signals from anything for the Medicaid side that they're going to all of a sudden pull funding or change that 90-10 split on the Medicaid expansion. But if they do, yeah, we'll have to make some decisions that I would rather take care of the aged, blind, disabled, pregnant women, children, and then maybe we need to take if you don't have children and you're working, maybe we go from 138% of the poverty line, maybe we have to take that down to 100, or maybe we need to put work requirements in. And so those are all things that I think the folks behind me will have, some tough decisions to make, but these are all hypothetical things, right? We're talking about none of that's happening right now.
I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly, and maybe Chairman Caldwell or Speaker Hilbert. I see 25 million new into the Common Education Funding Formula, but I see it notes House Bill 1087, which is a version of the bill that would require for every new $25 million, school districts are required to be in school one more day a year. If I'm not mistaken, a version of that failed on the House floor. And so I was curious if you could take us through how that came about, and I thought it kind of odd that no one's talked about this.
That's a great question. Upon negotiations with my counterpart in the Senate, and more specifically, a negotiation amongst the three principal education chairs in the House and Senator Pugh in the Senate, I think there's a level of compromise, and that compromise is essentially a merging of those two policy ideals, one about extending the scale from 30, adding additional 10 years for teachers when it comes to their pay scale, but at the same point in time, adding one day to the calendar, or approximately equivalent of 6.5 hours as well, but that's only as a one-time thing, so it's not going to happen into the future. The current iteration of the piece of legislation that failed on the floor was anytime $25 million of a trigger hit, you added an additional day to the calendar regardless. This is a one-time opportunity, so if we hypothetically added $50 million to the educational budget next year, that would not increase the amount of days by 2 days. I think that our caucus, after consulting with our education chairs, are much more comfortable with that policy, and I think that we'll have to bring that back up and take it before the body on the floor, but I believe we won't have any problems at all passing that agreement. Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit more to that. So there's two pieces, and as Chairman Caldwell said, this is not the original version which failed on the House floor, which increases a day in perpetuity for every $25 million. This is a one-time increase from a minimum of 165 days to a minimum of 166 days. And putting this in context, for a long time, school districts were at 180 days. It wasn't until 15 or so years ago, there's a big ice storm, and the legislature changed it from a minimum days to a minimum number of hours in response to the ice storm, so that because many school districts were without power for 2-3 weeks. And then over time, school districts started going less and less days, and that culminated several years ago in the legislature passing a bill, I think it was Senate Bill 441, if I remember the bill right, but that required a minimum of 165 days. So all this would do is take it to 166 days, which is still 14 days less than what it was about 15 or so years ago. And what it also does is it guarantees a teacher pay raise for our experienced teachers. What we have been saying again and again repeatedly is what we need to invest in and focus in public education is making sure we're recruiting and retaining quality educators, and making sure we're having as much quality time in front of those educators as possible. And so that's why you see in this legislation, currently the step raises for teachers go from step 0 to step 25. This increases that so that our more experienced teachers beyond year 25 continue to get those pay raises. And so that's an incentive to stay in the classroom. It's also an incentive for teachers who have left the classroom to come back, because they'll get a major pay raise with this increase. So it's a pay raise for teachers, and it goes right in line with all of our public education policy that we passed this year. You look at the bell-to-bell no-cell policy. What that's about more engaged, quality time for our students in front of our high-quality educators. And so this goes in line with everything we've been working on this session.
Question for the governor, not on the budget, unfortunately. Wanted to ask you about the roundtable that you took part in earlier today with business leaders, faith leaders, the Latino caucus as well. They held a media availability later today that said that you had agreed to continue your opposition to a proposed rule that would have schools collect students' immigration information. So if you could maybe speak to whether or not that's an accurate characterization of how that meeting went, and then just also what you learned from that meeting and any feedback you have from that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been up here several times saying that. I mean, it's correct. I mean, when they passed the rules that allowed, you know, to get to put some children on a list, that's where I stepped in. I said, listen, that's not what President Trump's talking about. President Trump's talking about enforcing the border, and he's talking about getting the criminal element out of our country. And I've never heard him talk about picking on kids. And so basically, they were just coming up here to let me know that it was the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry, construction industry, that some of the people are really, really scared and nervous about sending their kids to school, and they were just asking me to help them on that, you know, to be able to protect the young people in the state of Oklahoma. So, again, it's a complicated issue, and it's an issue that normally it's a political issue that nobody on my side of the aisle would jump in and say, hey, let's attack this. So I knew it was going to be political and people were going to come after me for it, but it's the right thing to do. And as a guy that's, you know, never thought of myself as a politician, everything I do is common sense to try to make Oklahoma a top 10 state. And I thought that that was an unforced error by elected official that runs that department. And it was just creating turmoil in my state that was unnecessary. And nobody, I mean, I've been super strong on the border. We have to have a strong border. President Trump has done amazing. I just saw a stat yesterday. In April of 24, when Biden was in office, there were 68,000 people released into the U.S. from the southern border. And last month, this April under Trump, it was 5. Okay, just an unbelievable difference. And so we have to know who's coming into our country. Now that we have President Trump securing our border, we need to solve what are these contract for works, what's that look like? What does workforce visas and permits look like? And I've been, you know, kind of a leader in the Republican and the National Governors Association, and I think all governors can agree that that belongs at the state level. Like workforce permits, we should have more say on the state level and match up employees with employees with employers, right? And give them a contract for work. Obviously, if you break the law, you're out of the country. But now we can actually get down to dealing with the real problem. And dealing with it by putting kids on a list is not something that I think we should do. And if we get, hopefully we can change that rule and put kind of Oklahomans at ease a little bit.
Good afternoon. Whoever will take this, but without getting too much into the weeds, what are some of the details on the tort reform package that you all agreed to? And is there a budget impact to that? If not, why is it unveiled this late in the session?
Thank you for the question. The tort reform package has been worked on for years. This year we really put an emphasis on that and worked through that. What you're going to see coming out of this is most things we've passed before in one version, other houses passed it, the Senate passed it, we've never have got a final version. This year we worked very hard to get that final version. And so what you're going to see is a cap on non-economic damages. You're going to see some issues with workers' comp that will prevent things from claim stacking. You're going to see the Governmental Tort Claims Act is going to be dealt with. And that's the one that I'll just kind of dwell on that one a little bit. And that's the one that I've taken on personally because of my role as a former mayor of my community. A lot of towns were being relentlessly filed lawsuits against because of sewage backups. Well, because of a court ruling a few years ago, it used to be a nuisance claim based on that particular claim. Then a judge said, well, no, now that can be stacked times the number of residents in the house. So it's a claim for every person that lives there. So instead of there being a nuisance of, say, around $100,000 to $125,000 because of the backup of the sewage, now it was times the number of people in the household. So if you have a household with 8 people in there, it became a very lucrative thing to do. And then the attorneys going to cities doing public information requests for anybody that has filed a complaint with the city regarding a sewer backup. And it just became a bigger and bigger deal to the point that the Oklahoma Municipal Assurance Group, who insures all these municipalities, is putting a cap on that claim. In other words, they're not going to pay beyond a certain level. So once that cap is in place and that cap is exceeded, then those claims will go on the tax rolls. So this has become a huge problem where the system that was there that's always worked was starting to be abused. So that's where we're coming there with multiple levels of this and putting limits on that, making it where somebody who is injured, somebody who is eligible for relief because of something still gets those benefits. But it's not where we're going to have to put a stop to the jackpot awards, where it's going to be running our business out of state. I mentioned, and the governor mentioned, and the speaker mentioned the fact that we are doing our best to become a very, very business-friendly state. That does not mean businesses are not liable for torts that they create or they cause, but we don't need to be having it where it's, a bunch of trial lawyers chasing those businesses around, suing them. So this puts a cap on that. It makes it where injured workers still get benefits that they're owed, but not the awards that put our businesses, make them go do business somewhere else. So that's what this does. So there'll be a lot more details next week on this, but that gives you a pretty good overview. Thank you. No, there's no physical impact to that. Everything was in a big package to work on. Everything is starting to come together this week.
Thank you all.